Hello and welcome to another exercise in watercolour, this time a small floral subject. Start with our rough sketch, give me a bit of an idea of some colour scheme that I might like to employ here. I don't get terribly involved with a lot of flower or floral type scenes and so on, but they are fun to paint. Here we're applying a bit of background with some clean water, fairly liberally, and we'll utilise a fairly general application for the background here. Cadmium yellow, Indian yellow, some azo orange, in various varying degrees of strength and value. I like my backgrounds to be not of any particular consequence, but interesting if you can. A bit of azo orange here just for feature, and applied quite liberally. I want them to have that variation when they dry. And this is a study with, because I'm using sort of fairly heavy washes and so on, and quite wet. There's going to be quite a lot of drying in the process of the painting, and it's something which there's no way around it. We have to do it. Otherwise, of course, when you're applying you paint in fairly heavy washes or fairly vigorous washes and so on, what you don't want to wind up with is mud. Unfortunately, there's no way back. So we try to make this a bit more interesting. A little bit of red in the vase itself, a bit of cad red, and then a little bit of alizarin crimson or a bit of permanent rose, just to break it up a little bit. I want the edges of the vase shown quite clearly against that background, one more so than the other. And here we're just bring a little bit of it over onto the right-hand side, the lit side of the vase, with clean water, just using a little bit of the existing wash, and drag it over there as a background, as a base for what we're trying to do. A little bit of feature on the darkened side of the vase, bring it down to the table or the bench or whatever it is the thing's sitting on, just so that we lose that edge, the bottom edge for shadow and so on there, to give us a stronger indication on that as to the shape of the vase in that area. The flowers themselves are a blue, come violet, etc. coloration. So I'm using a mixture of blues here. About 3 or 4 of them will get a go here. I'm using a little bit of manganese blue here with a bit of cerulean. Just a little bit graze the manganese a little bit. I really like manganese blue. It's a lovely colour to incorporate into most paintings, or the way I do them at least. Up here where the light strikes these flowers up here and so on, we'll use a little bit of cobalt, possibly a little bit of turquoise a bit later on, but just to give them a slight different touch, bring them away from the flower on front left. A little bit more manganese in here. And so on. Some of the darker features and so on of these will come in later on with ultramarine and indigo, and 1 or 2 other treatments as well. So far with this painting I've used the number 4 mop, the squirrel hair mop, and that serves the purposes of where we are at this stage quite well. When we get along a little bit further, I'll bring that down to a small Escoda, about 4, darker or the deeper areas, the shaded areas of the composition. I'm just bringing in here with a little bit of violet, a bit of ultramarine blue, and I take it around most parts of the painting. Hopefully there can be a little bit of depth here and there. I'm by no means a botanical artist in any sense. I do like these for the different shades and different shapes, larger shapes, smaller shapes, different angles, and so on, and the occasional transparency of some of the flower petals that we experience on the way through. A little bit of underpainting here for the leaf foliage and so on, and I like to incorporate a lighter, sometimes even straight yellow, in where these flowers are going to be, or the leaves, where they're going to be. And that helps with a little bit of the vibrance of whatever it is you put over the top of them. Hopefully they'll retain that feeling of foliage no matter what you do to them. A bit of accent, a bit of shade on the leaves themselves, and most of them are sitting behind the flowers. Incorporate a little bit of darkness in underneath these here, using a little bit of burnt sienna. I will add to that in due course with some ultramarine blue. That gives me that lovely dark grey. The clean water, just to help the balance along a little bit, so we're not losing sight of the fact that we want our washes to be transparent where possible. Gives a feeling of softness, which of course is, imagine what you expect from floral compositions and so on. These flowers, whatever they are, have a coloured vein that goes around the outside of it. So I'm incorporating a little bit of that into some of the leaves and the petals of the flowers. Let's go back and reinforce our vase wash here. Same choice of colour. Cad red, maybe a little bit of alizarin and so on. But essentially it's just a little stronger than the initial wash that we had. Again, just accentuating some of the shaded areas on the vase to create that, make that surface a little bit interesting. when some of these washes are well and truly dry, you can go back into the flowers themselves for a bit of feature work and accentuate some of the shadows, so to spell out the shapes of the flowers in a more meaningful manner. The paper that I'm using here is Fabriano, and my paint is M. Graham. The brushes are a Raphael mop, size 4 thereabouts, and these two smaller brushes that I've incorporated into this piece are Escoda, from the Escoda range. I'm not sure whether they're sable, they may be synthetic, but in either case they work beautifully. From this point on, I find that I've got to be careful not to chase this thing too far. We can overpaint very, very easily by perhaps over-focusing on some of the smaller details of the flowers. I would rather have the suggestion of shape and shadow rather than the statement of the veins in all the leaves and likewise in the flowers concerned. I'm sure there are a lot of other people who can do that much, much better than I can. So, and that's not my purpose when I start out these things. So here I'm just removing a little bit of colour in places with a damp brush. It's as important as to what you take off as much as what you leave in there. Again, just a bit of reinforcement of some of the foliage. A dark mixture of green, indigo, Indian yellow. I like a strong difference with the colours that I incorporate into paintings. I like them to be bold. I don't think you can call me a transparent painter by any means. Even though I enjoy the softness of the colour and so on that you can get in this type of composition and so on. I'm not looking for a particularly soft treatment of this composition. Getting towards the finishing touches and so on now, so it's just a few bits and pieces that hopefully might help the composition. Again, it can be very tempting to try to do too much with your painting. It's not necessary. We must always know when to stop. When you feel you've done enough, it's to chase the painting to the point whereby you really don't know where you're going is only fraught with danger. I'm doing these smaller bits and pieces on the flowers and some of the veins in the petals and that little bit of colour around the outside with a dagger brush, lovely fine tip to it, and it gives you the ability to very spontaneous lines, thick and thin and so on, and just a lovely contact. I think we're just about done with a little bit of gouache on, a little bit of white gouache on just some of the areas that will catch the light, and not too much. You don't need too much of this, and it can be, like many treatments and so on, it can be a big temptation to overdo the application of gouache as a feature. I think we're just about done. I hope you've enjoyed this. I've enjoyed doing it for you. Thank you.